You know what makes a woman dangerous? It's not how loud she speaks. It's not how many people she knows. It's not even how many people are clapping for her. What makes her dangerous is when she learns to be alone and builds confidence without needing anybody else to give it to her. Because, let's be honest, most people are addicted to approval. They're addicted to being noticed, to being validated, to being reassured that they matter. But the woman who spends time alone, she breaks that addiction. She doesn't need to be told who she is. She already knows. And that kind of confidence is rare. Think about it. If you can sit in a room by yourself, no phone, no noise, no one around, and still feel at peace with who you are, that's power. That's not insecurity. That's not loneliness. That's strength. Because confidence that comes from other people can be taken away. If they stop clapping, if they stop noticing, if they stop calling, your confidence crumbles. But when your confidence is built in silence, when it's born out of your own approval, nobody can touch it. That's what makes her untouchable. She doesn't chase people because she doesn't need people to feel complete. She doesn't overcompensate to be liked because her worth isn't tied to somebody else's acceptance. And she's not swayed by the opinions of the crowd because she's already made peace with herself. And let me tell you something. That's what makes her intimidating. Not in a loud, threatening way, but in the kind of quiet strength that people can feel the moment she walks into a room. She doesn't even have to say much. Her presence speaks for itself. Confidence built in solitude creates a different kind of energy. It's calm, it's steady, it's grounded. And here's the truth. People don't know how to respond to that. They expect you to beg for attention, to fight for recognition, to seek approval. But when you're the kind of woman who sits back, unbothered, secure, knowing exactly who you are, that shakes people, because deep down, they wish they had that same strength. Spending time alone forces you to sit with your own thoughts, and when you do that long enough, you realize something. Most of the noise in your life isn't even yours. It's other people's opinions, other people's expectations, other people's voices telling you who to be, how to act, what to want. But when you strip all that away, and it's just you and your silence, you discover your own voice. You learn what you want, what you believe, what you stand for, and once you know that, no one can convince you otherwise. That's why her confidence is so dangerous. She's not scared of losing anyone. She's not desperate for company. She's not terrified of being misunderstood, because she knows who she is, even if nobody else does. And that's where freedom begins. You see, a woman who can stand alone can stand anywhere. She can walk into relationships, friendships, workplaces, and never be shaken by rejection or judgment, because she's not leaning on anyone else to hold her up. She stands tall on her own. And here's the part people miss. Being alone doesn't mean she's lonely. It means she's learned how to enjoy her own company, and once you enjoy your own company, you're no longer afraid of being left behind, because you were never behind to begin with. You were already whole. You were already complete. And when people realize they can't control you with approval, they can't manipulate you with attention, and they can't break you with silence, that's when they know you're dangerous. Because a woman who builds confidence alone builds confidence that nobody can take away. Clarity is one of the rarest things in the world today. You look around, and people are constantly moving, constantly scrolling, constantly chasing. But if you stop and ask them, where are you going? What do you really want? Most of them can't even answer. They're running fast, but they don't even know the destination. And that's why a woman who spends time alone is so different. Because when you strip away the noise, when you step back from the distractions, when you allow yourself to just sit with silence, you gain clarity that most people will never have. You stop following the crowd, and you start hearing yourself. And when you hear yourself, you can no longer ignore the truth. You can't hide behind excuses. You can't bury yourself in busyness. You can't keep pretending you don't know what you want. Solitude forces you to face your own reflection, and in that reflection, you start to see who you really are. That's why she's dangerous, because clarity makes her unstoppable. While everyone else is comparing themselves to strangers on a screen, she's comparing herself to who she was yesterday. While everyone else is pulled in 10 different directions, she's moving with precision toward one. While everyone else is confused, chasing trends, chasing people, chasing temporary highs, she's chasing purpose. That's why she doesn't have time for drama, she doesn't get caught up in gossip, she doesn't waste energy on things that don't serve her. Clarity makes her selective. She knows what belongs in her life and what doesn't. Think about how powerful that is. Most people settle because they don't know what they're worth. Most people cling because they're afraid to let go. Most people stay stuck because they don't have a clear vision of where they want to be. But when a woman gains clarity through her solitude, she doesn't settle. She chooses. She doesn't cling. She releases. She doesn't stay stuck. She moves forward with intention. That's not just different, that's dangerous. And clarity doesn't just change what she says yes to, it changes what she says no to. She's no longer saying yes just to keep the peace. She's no longer saying yes to avoid being alone. She's no longer saying yes to prove herself. No. Her no is firm. Her yes is intentional. And her boundaries are solid. And let me tell you, when a woman has the clarity to protect her energy, to guard her focus, and to move only in alignment with her vision, that's when her life starts to transform. See, clarity is freedom. Because once you know what you want, you stop wasting time on what you don't. Once you know where you're going, you stop being distracted by every little detour. And once you know who you are, you stop giving people the power to define you. And that's the kind of freedom that scares people, because most of the world is lost in confusion, but she isn't. Most of the world is following the crowd, but she isn't. Most of the world is surviving, but she's building. She's not wandering, she's not waiting, she's not hoping somebody else will figure it out for her. She's intentional, and that intentionality sets her apart. You can't manipulate someone with clarity. You can't trap them in circles they've already seen through. You can't distract them with noise when they've already mastered silence. That's why a woman who gains clarity in her solitude is a woman you can't control. Because once she sees her vision clearly, nothing can stop her from reaching it. There's another reason why a woman who spends time alone is dangerous. She learns how to master her emotions. And I want you to really think about that, because in this world, most people are ruled by their emotions. They react without thinking. They explode when they're angry. They panic when they're afraid. They crumble when they feel rejected. And because of that, they're easy to control. You push the right button, you get the reaction you want. But when a woman has sat with herself long enough, when she's been alone long enough to process what she feels, she becomes the exact opposite. She's calm, steady, and in control. See, solitude teaches you patience. It teaches you how to sit with your anger instead of letting it burn everything down. It teaches you how to process your sadness instead of drowning in it. It teaches you how to find peace in the storm, because you've weathered storms before, and you survived them alone. That's the kind of training that makes her strong. When she feels hurt, she doesn't chase closure. When she feels betrayed, she doesn't beg for answers. When she feels disrespected, she doesn't fight to prove her worth. She's learned how to regulate herself, to breathe, to respond with clarity instead of chaos. And that's what makes her dangerous, because you can't manipulate someone who doesn't react the way you expect them to. You can't break someone who doesn't hand you their emotions. You can't control someone who doesn't give you access to their peace. While everyone else is quick to argue, quick to prove, quick to shout, she stays quiet, composed, and intentional. And believe me, nothing is more powerful than a woman who knows how to stay calm in situations designed to break her. Think about it. Anger can make you weak, not strong, if you don't know how to manage it. Desperation can blind you if you don't know how to recognize it. Fear can paralyze you if you don't learn how to move through it. But when you spend time alone, when you've practiced sitting with those emotions instead of running from them, they stop controlling you. You start controlling them, and that's what gives her the upper hand in every situation. She doesn't need to slam doors to make a point. She doesn't need to raise her voice to prove her strength. Her strength is in her restraint. Her power is in her ability to walk away without a scene. Her silence speaks louder than an argument ever could, and people don't know how to deal with that. They expect drama, they expect begging, they expect an emotional meltdown, but instead, she gives them peace. And peace is the last thing they know how to fight against. That's why solitude is her training ground. It's where she builds her discipline. It's where she learns that not every thought deserves to be spoken, not every emotion deserves a reaction, not every insult deserves a response. She becomes intentional about what she gives her energy to, and because of that, her energy multiplies. She doesn't waste it on battles that don't matter. She saves it for the things that actually do. And here's the truth: when you can control your emotions, you control the direction of your life. You're no longer a puppet being pulled by every situation, by every opinion, by every wave of feeling that comes and goes. You're anchored, you're grounded, and nothing, no matter how loud or messy, can knock you off balance. That's why a woman who has mastered her emotions in solitude is untouchable. There's something else that happens when a woman learns to spend time alone. She becomes self-sufficient. And I don't just mean financially, although that's part of it. I'm talking about a deeper kind of independence, emotional independence, mental independence, spiritual independence, the kind that makes her realize she doesn't need anyone to complete her, because she is already whole on her own. Most people walk around with this emptiness inside them, hoping somebody else will fill it. They get into relationships not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being abandoned, fear of facing themselves. But a woman who embraces solitude has already faced herself. She's already learned how to sit with her own company, how to take care of her own needs, how to handle her own storms. That makes her dangerous, because she's not attaching herself to anyone out of desperation. She chooses people out of preference, not out of need, and that changes everything. Because when you don't need somebody to survive, you don't tolerate what doesn't honor you. You don't cling to people who mistreat you. You don't settle for less than you deserve. A woman who has built her own strength, her own foundation, her own peace, she's not afraid to walk away. She's not afraid to stand alone. She's not afraid of starting over, because she knows she's enough without anyone else adding to her. That's the kind of independence most people can't wrap their heads around. See, self-sufficiency doesn't mean she shuts people out. It doesn't mean she doesn't want love or support or connection. It means she doesn't depend on it. She's grateful when it's there, but she's not destroyed when it isn't, and that makes her unshakable. Because the minute you stop needing someone to validate your worth, you stop being controlled by them. You stop being manipulated by attention. You stop being broken by absence. That's when you step into real freedom, and that's what she's built in her solitude. She's taught herself that her happiness isn't in someone else's hands. She's learned that her peace isn't up for negotiation. She's discovered that her future isn't dependent on whether someone else chooses her or not. She chooses herself every single day, and that's why she's powerful. Think about it. If you're financially independent, you don't have to stay where you're not respected. If you're emotionally independent, you don't crumble when someone walks away. If you're mentally independent, you don't lose yourself trying to fit into someone else's expectations. And when you have all three, you become unstoppable, because you're not chained to anyone's opinion, anyone's approval, or anyone's presence. You stand strong on your own 2 feet. And here's the part people don't realize. When you don't need, you actually attract more. Because people can feel the difference between desperation and wholeness. Desperation repels. Wholeness draws people in. She doesn't chase, but opportunities find her. She doesn't beg, but respect follows her. She doesn't demand, but love gravitates toward her. And all of it happens because she's already built a life where she is enough without it. This is what solitude gave her. It taught her how to provide for herself, how to protect her energy, how to create her own stability. And once you've built that kind of foundation, nothing and no one can take it from you. That's why she moves with such quiet confidence. That's why her presence feels so strong, because she's not leaning on anyone else. She carries herself. And that's why a woman who becomes self-sufficient in her solitude is impossible to break. One of the most dangerous things a woman learns in her solitude is the power of silence. And I don't mean silence as in weakness, or silence as in letting people walk over her. I mean the kind of silence that speaks louder than words ever could. Because when a woman realizes she doesn't have to explain herself to everyone, when she understands that not every situation deserves her reaction, when she learns that sometimes the strongest thing she can do is say nothing, that's when she becomes untouchable. See, most people don't know how to handle silence. They expect noise, they expect arguments, they expect drama, they expect you to fight back, to defend yourself, to explain why you're worthy, and when you don't give them that, when you just sit back calm and unbothered, it drives them crazy. Because silence leaves space for them to hear their own echo. Silence forces them to face their own actions without your words softening the blow. Silence is a mirror, and most people can't handle looking into it. When you've spent time alone, you learn this. You learn that you don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to correct every lie. You don't need to clap back at every criticism, because your peace is worth more than your point. And the moment you stop giving your energy to things beneath you, you start protecting your strength. That's why her silence is powerful. It's not about ignoring the truth. It's about choosing peace over chaos, choosing self-control over reaction, choosing wisdom over ego. And here's what makes that so dangerous. Silence creates presence. When she pulls back, her absence is felt more than someone else's constant noise. People notice when she's not around. They notice when she doesn't engage. They notice when she's not available to entertain their nonsense anymore. And that absence, that silence, carries more weight than any speech could. Think about it. Arguing with someone only puts you on their level. Defending yourself against lies only gives the lie power. Explaining yourself to people who have already made up their mind only wastes your breath. But when she chooses silence, she's not playing the game at all. She's reminding everyone that her value doesn't need defending, that her truth doesn't need convincing, that her worth doesn't require permission, and that's what stings the most. Silence is also discipline. It's easy to lash out, easy to scream, easy to fight for attention, but it takes strength to hold your tongue. It takes wisdom to step back. It takes courage to walk away without needing the last word. And that kind of discipline only comes from solitude, only from practicing stillness, only from learning how to sit with yourself and realize that peace isn't found in noise. It's found in control, and let me tell you, when a woman learns that silence is an answer, her life changes. She doesn't waste energy proving what's already obvious. She doesn't fight for closure she can give herself. She doesn't get pulled into battles that were never worth fighting in the first place. She lets people wonder. She lets them sit with their own guilt, their own assumptions, their own noise, and while they're busy drowning in it, she's already moved forward in peace. That's why her silence is so dangerous, because it's not emptiness, it's power. The final thing that makes a woman who spends time alone so dangerous is the vision she develops. See, solitude isn't just about peace and silence. It's where growth begins. It's where she starts asking herself deeper questions. Where do I want to be in 5 years? What kind of life do I actually want to build? What kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? These aren't questions most people stop to think about because they're too distracted, too busy, too wrapped up in what everyone else is doing. But a woman who chooses her own space, who uses her alone time intentionally, starts seeing her life with a clarity that others don't. She realizes she doesn't want to just exist. She wants to live. She doesn't want to just react. She wants to create. And once that seed of vision is planted, everything around her begins to change, because she no longer has time for circles that drain her, habits that stunt her, or relationships that keep her small. She's too focused on the bigger picture. That's what makes her dangerous. She's not stuck in the cycle of temporary distractions. She's building something that lasts. While everyone else is running from one thing to the next with no direction, she's walking with intention toward her future. And here's the thing, vision gives you momentum. Vision makes sacrifice easy. Vision gives you resilience when obstacles show up. And that's exactly what she's gained in her solitude. She doesn't waste her energy fighting battles that don't move her forward. She doesn't waste her words on conversations that don't build her future. She doesn't waste her time on people who don't align with where she's going, because vision brings discipline, vision brings focus. Vision brings purpose, and once you know your purpose, you can't be distracted by nonsense. This is why she doesn't flinch when people leave. This is why she doesn't crumble when things don't go her way. She knows it's all part of the journey. She understands that setbacks aren't the end. They're just a chapter. And while others are panicking, she's still moving forward, one step at a time, because she sees the bigger picture. And here's what makes it powerful. Vision turns her solitude into fuel. She uses her quiet time to learn, to grow, to dream, to plan. She starts mapping out ideas, setting goals, building habits. She becomes intentional about who she lets into her circle, where she invests her energy, and how she spends her time. And before anyone else even notices, she's already transforming. She's already building. She's already creating a life that reflects her vision. And when she finally steps out into the world, it shocks people, because they thought she was just quiet. They thought she was just reserved. They thought she was just keeping to herself. What they didn't see was the work happening in the silence. They didn't see the seeds being planted in her solitude. They didn't see the growth that was happening when nobody was watching. But when it blooms, when it all comes together, it's undeniable. That's why a woman who embraces solitude becomes dangerous, because she's not wasting her life trying to be seen. She's preparing for the moment she can no longer be ignored.